So, those of you that just entered the room, this is Mark Sargent. We've watched a video on him. Uh, it's been a few weeks ago, but we did this with him last year. Mark is a, uh, for lack of a better term, flat earther.
Yeah.
Um,
How about flat Earth advocate? That'd be
Flat Earth advocate. Okay, there. I like that. I'm going to write that down for
yeah.
future
Flat Earth
reference.
advocate.
And he has volunteered to speak with you all. Um, it's good to be exposed to people who have possibly different thoughts than your own. Sometimes those thoughts are going to be controversial. And this is just a good exercise for you throughout your life experiences because you never know. Someone may think of some of your ideas as being something that is unconventional. So, we have a list of questions that the students have created again, just
Yep.
like last year.
Sure.
I've tried to make it so that not all of the questions are gotcha questions or things of that sort, just some general questions to try to learn more about flat Earth and some maybe about you and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So, without any further ado, we will begin. So, in the theory or in the thought process of flat Earth,
Yeah.
um, you believe that the sun is an orb that is in the sky inside of this dome, like the moon,
Yep.
and that all of the celestial bodies are also inside this dome.
Yep.
So there's a
All those
model.
things. It looks sort of like this, sort of an outstretched snow globe where we're down on the inside of this thing. The continents are laid out. The North Pole would be in the center, and the continents are splayed out on the outside. Hopefully, you can see that pretty well. And then everything in the sky is just projections on a ceiling, no different than it would be in a planetarium. And I don't know where the nearest planetarium to you out there in Missouri is. But again, for those kids, and I know planetariums, that's an old person's thing, going
Yeah.
to planetariums or going to Laser Floyd in the weekends in the same planetariums. But everything on the ceiling is just a projection, even though we can do amazing things with planetariums now. The question is, when you walk outside of that building, who's to say you're not in a much bigger building designed by someone that's not us? Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. So the sun,
Yeah.
then by your definition, I am assuming, is not a star.
No, no, it's just a bigger, much brighter light on the ceiling.
Okay. So stars are their own entity.
Yep.
Um, Now, that feeds into a little bit of the next question.
Yep.
Uh, Everything that is visible to us lies within the dome. We are not able to see anything outside of the dome.
Yes. Everything's self-contained. There is no solar system. There is no space. And I know that one of your questions would be what's outside of this. We'll maybe get to that later. But yeah, everything that you see visibly in the sky is inside this building. No different than a Hollywood soundstage.
Okay. So we are not, the dome is not transparent.
As far as we can tell, no, it is not transparent.
Okay. So I'm going to feed a little bit off of some things that I remember that you answered last year. And some of these students did get to see a bit of that recording from last year just to kind of get a feel of like what this would be like.
Okay.
Um, One of the things that was discussed last year, hold on, I've lost my place of where I was. Um, well, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
It'll circle back.
Something
Okay,
from
so
last year. Something about the sun?
yeah, yeah, no, it, it'll circle back. I'll get back to it.
Okay.
Here's another question, and I think I remember asking something like this last year. But do you consider yourself to be a religious person?
Yes, very much so. I was raised in a born again Christian home. evangelical. Church was not just a Sunday thing. Of course, this was during its heyday, back in the 80s when you had youth group and vacation Bible school and anything to keep the internet wasn't a thing, so we had to keep ourselves busy. And yeah, on the island, very religious.
Okay, so creation,
Yeah.
um, if it's some sort of entity, whether it be God or whatever,
Uh-huh.
um, is this being active in controlling this, for lack of a better word, theater that we
Yeah.
are living in?
Yeah.
Essentially, we are living in a theater.
Yeah, you bet. Shakespeare said, "All the world's a stage, and we are just players in it." And if it comes to, it comes to this, and I'm gonna, speak to the people that aren't religious in the room as well. It really comes down to one of two choices: either a bigger, older civilization that's much more powerful than ourselves, or some sort of divine entity. But at that point, you're really just kind of splitting hairs, aren't you? Because one man's advanced tech is another man's deity. If a giant golden spaceship decided to land anywhere in the world, you'd have some people would be like, "Oh wow, we should meet, the blue people and be friends with them," and other people would just start building churches in their name. So yeah,
So, do you believe that there is an end of times?
yes. I think every civilization has an end of times. It's everything's cyclical in nature. We are not the first people to first civilization to rent this apartment, not by any stretch. There's ancient ruins that predate our civilization. If our unbroken history only goes back like 5,000 years, look at all the other stuff that's out there, remnants of it. The sunken cities off Japan and India, Pumapunku, Machu Picchu, the Bosnian pyramids, the real pyramids. Oh, Bimini Road, it just goes on and on and on, right? I shudder to think that when our civilization finally ends, and I do want to get back to your end times thing, when our civilization finally ends, will the thing that survives in America, I've got this funny feeling it's just going to be Mount Rushmore. That's it, because it's so far inland that it'll probably survive everything. And when people show up later to see Mount Rushmore, it'd be like, what the hell is that all about? These four faces in the hills. Anyway, what about the end times? Was there a follow-up to that?
So, a lot of end of times type scenarios or things that we have experienced in the past that were mass extinctions,
Yeah.
like the dinosaurs,
Right.
those types of things
Yeah.
occurred from, or what from scientists can best tell, is from some kind of asteroid or something falling from the sky or coming from the sky and striking Earth. And,
Sure.
you know, that's that's one of the thoughts. So if things are projected on the dome,
Yeah.
that means that nothing's going to fall from the sky
Nope.
in that manner.
Not in that matter. But do I think that whoever's running this place causes a cataclysm every once in a while? Yeah, you bet. I do. The my favorite, of course, not to wax biblical, but the Great Flood has been covered in just about every culture you can think of that has nothing to do with the Bible. But to your point about the asteroids, and by the way, do I think there were dinosaurs? Yeah. Yeah, I do. Do I think there were giant lizards running around? Yeah, I've got no problem with the giant lizards. When they existed, as far as carbon dating, I'm not really sure about that. But the thing that always kind of puzzles me about asteroids recently, and I challenge anybody to show me a good video, we've got more, there are more cell phones out there now. More people have cell phones than have running water, right? There's like 6 billion smartphones in the world,
Mhm.
something along those lines. And yet we don't have a video of a single asteroid going from sky to ground, or more importantly, sky to water. If there's three-quarters of the world is water, you'd think somebody from a cruise ship or a fishing boat or something would follow, track something going into the drink. Uh, as far as I can tell, most of the stuff is lights in the sky. And then as far as the craters are, what we see on the ground, maybe some terraforming later or maybe during a cataclysm, but the asteroids aren't coming from deep space. So am I worried? Sorry, quick follow up. Am I worried about what was it, the Atlas thing that's supposedly, hanging around for the next few weeks? Was it the 3i, that thing? No, not even, nothing in space bothers me in the slightest.
Okay. So things like Halley's Comet
Yeah.
or other celestial bodies that only come around like once every,
76
century or something.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, things of that sort. Where are they in that in between time?
They're no different than anything else in the sky. The moon, the sun, the stars, shooting stars, anything you're looking at is just basically lights on a screen. And until I see one again, somebody show me a meteor going from Earth to ground. Oh, well, I've seen stuff shooting through the sky. That's no problem. We can see that. Was it the Perseus meteor shower every year? And yet find me, the retasking of satellites during that. Find me any cataclysm. You would have thought, by the way, that we would have run us into a story where a meteor just decimated a bunch of satellites. Never hear that, but yeah. Sorry, to your point, no, everything is just lights in the sky.
Okay. So this is the globe or the round earth
Right.
theory,
Yep.
I guess, is some sort of hoax, I guess, put on by government or
Um,
from some kind of power entity. Uh,
sure. Yeah. Yeah. The globe, and I don't necessarily call it a hoax. It is a deception to be sure, but it's more of an arm of control, which is the easiest way to to control people is to make it seem like you the definition of their world is they can't get off. There's nowhere to go. They're trapped. Which is why I think, remember back in the day, I'm sure you watched some of the clues, which is if we were living on some sort of, barrier like this, eventually our technology is going to catch up with every area and people are going to want to explore it. Well, what's the easiest way to tell, to stop that from happening? Just tell people this doesn't exist. There is no wall to go to. There is nowhere to explore, sort of like the Truman Show from 1998 where it's like, no, it's already been explored. You can't get off. The governments control the space agencies. You're not going anywhere. Because if we were in today's time and those, the outer, markers were still there and people were still looking at the snow globe model, oh, there'd be people trying to explore it all the time. So you nip that in the bud a long time before, especially, what I consider the most important invention ever, the internal combustion engine, which was, that created a lot of different things, especially in exploration, and you stop people from going. There you go. So yeah, the powers that be, short answer, the powers that be are the ones that corralled us in. How's that?
I'm turning the volume up just a little bit. I I think that you're a little bit on the quiet
Am
side.
I?
Well, no, I don't think it's on your end. I think it's on my end.
Okay. Well,
For some reason.
I'll crank mine up anyway.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Um, let's see. So that brings us to um, all right. So a lot of geographers state that flat maps
Yeah.
do not have the ability to depict Earth or to represent Earth accurately because when you transition from a 3D model to a 2D plane,
Right.
it throws off um, the shapes and sizes of continents and things of that sort.
Right.
So if you look at any flat map, Greenland is exceptionally large
Right.
compared to what it would be on a globe
Right.
because of the way that it is expanded and it would have to be taken from different angles or different views to show or depict its true size or nature.
Right.
So how do you account for are 2D maps accurate or
No, no. Okay. So first off, the map you're talking about, the one that's been used in every class forever, it's called the Mercator map. And which is interesting because you pointed out, yeah, it's absolutely, even from a mainstream science standpoint, it's absolutely inaccurate. The Greenland Africa disparity, where it looks like Greenland is as massive as Africa, but it's just tiny by comparison. So why are we still using it? It's like, well, it's been working so far for now, and it's a decent enough depiction of the world. The more accurate flat map from that standpoint, not using our map, would be if I'm not mistaken, the Gall-Peters map, which puts things in way better perspective. And when you look at that, you compare like the Mercator to the Gall-Peters, it's like, oh yeah, the continents are just way out of alignment. Europe is not where you think it is. Africa is not where you think it is. It's not just the size, it's the location. But when it comes to our map, which I thought was interesting, and we didn't invent this, by the way, the flat map where all the continents are in correct proportion. This is called the azimuthal equidistant map, and it took me months to be able to say that during things like this accurately. Azimuthal equidistant, which is we didn't invent it. Do you know where it initially came from? It came, well, other than it was created by a guy named Al Biruni back in the day, at least the perspective, but it's also the UN flag. When you look at the UN flag, you guys can look this up on your phones any day you want. Just type in UN flag, and that is the flat Earth map. What's interesting for me is the UN flag, again, the continents look pretty good, right? Except there's a continent missing on the UN flag, and that's Antarctica. But that's kind of strange. Why would you leave an entire continent out of the world flag, the one that's at the United Nations? And that's because Antarctica in this map is just a big giant snowy mass around the outside. And in the UN flag, that snowy mass isn't there, and instead it's replaced by a spiky Greco-Roman wreath around the outside. I thought that was kind of interesting. But anyway, no, most flat maps are not accurate. Is ours perfectly accurate? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it's got problems, but we go around and say, no, no, no. They took our map and squeezed it around. They took the original azimuthal map and then squeezed it around the globe. And ours works better in a lot of different cases. Look up, flight paths and where they go during emergencies. There's a wonderful book out there called Emergency Flights on a Flat Earth, which is when planes are I don't know how many people in the room have flown, but when planes have to go certain routes, if you have to divert because of a medical emergency, weird routes that they take, but that's the closest airport to where they want to go. But it may only make sense on a flat map. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
No. Okay, so you mentioned that your map has flaws.
Sure.
What is a flaw that you will admit to or that you believe there is a flaw in your map?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I
What
mean,
what no, but what is one? Can you
the
identify a
the the
flaw?
biggest the biggest flaw for us would be, if you're looking at this thing, probably how Australia is stretched in the map. So Australia, and I'm not mistaken, you gotta look that up if you get a chance. We've got four time zones, if I'm not including the one in Maine in the United States, but they have two and a half time zones, and it changes depending on the season. But yeah, when it comes to us, the southern hemisphere, which would be the outer ring, has problems, notably Australia. That's the main thing, our main problem.
Well, and that falls into or that goes into the next question
Yeah.
basically is that the perimeter of the outer rings
Hmm.
of your type of map
Yeah.
are going to put things out of proportion compared to the inner rings.
Right.
Um, there's going to be greater distances. So
Yes.
therefore, it would not be an equidistant map because an equidistant map by
Definition.
definition
Yeah.
is an equal to natural distant
Yeah.
map.
Yeah.
So, how do you account for um, the distance between southern Africa and the southern parts of South America? Those are not represented justly, I
Yeah.
guess you could say, and Australia being stretched
Right.
um, beyond its time zones and things of that sort. How do you um, justify that in your mind as far as maintaining that the Earth is flat?
I don't really have a great answer for you on that one. As far because again, one, we didn't invent the azimuthal equidistant. I would have never come up with a name like that anyway.
Mhm.
So when it comes to distances in the southern hemisphere, I don't really have an answer for you. I don't know. Other than the other thing, I thought, this one doesn't have the radial spirals on it, to cover the 24 time zones. If you ever get a
Mhm.
chance, look up how the time zones are accounted for in the southern versus northern. I mean, from our standpoint, the time zones are way more damning in that it looks like they had to kind of fold and tuck time zones away on the globe that don't really make sense for us, because the radial arms, remember, 24, you can condense them pretty well near the North Pole, but in the southern hemisphere, you can hide them in the ocean. The big thing about the southern hemisphere, in this case, which is the outer rings, is most of it is ocean. Huge, huge swaths of ocean where nobody lives. And so if you wanted to hide things, that's where you'd do it.
Okay. Um, all right. So back to I know you didn't use the word hoax. I used the word hoax, but back to that idea that the world governments or whatever entity it is putting this on as a form of control
Right.
or whatever. What is there to gain from doing that?
It's
And
not, and thank you for that question because I haven't gotten that one in a little while. It's not what you stand to gain, it's what you have to lose, which is the people in power, people in authority. And we're not talking about, your run-of-the-mill billionaires. We're talking about the people that you don't ever hear about. The first rule of power, by the way, if you guys want to remember anything from this, is stay hidden. Napoleon said it best. He goes, they can't overthrow you if they don't know who you are, which means you can't be the puppet and the puppet master at the same time. It's almost impossible to do. If you're on stage, they know who you are. You've got a target on your back. Kings can be overthrown. Princes, dictators, they can all be overthrown because you know who they are. It's the people that fund them. I don't want to get into the politics of our country. Politicians are bought and sold like so much stock. But as far as what you have to gain is the retention of power, which means if you don't, and by the way, I firmly believe, and I've said this on many a thing, that even our best and brightest didn't figure this out entirely until about 1960 because we just didn't have the tech to do it. Remember, we didn't even have pressurized aircraft aren't even 100 years old yet. So if you don't figure it out till almost 1960, the civilization's already built, the infrastructure's already built. So imagine that meeting, you want to call it the authority, the Illuminati, whatever meeting you want. Imagine that meeting with these people, which is, okay, what happens if we actually tell the people? What benefit would it be to tell the people? Well, there's no benefit of telling them at all. In fact, you run into a lot of problems. One would be academic, which would be every library and every university. You would have to clear it out. I mean, astronomy and astrophysics, that's gone almost forever. And then everything else, geology, hydrology, archaeology, biology, take your pick. Those have to be rebuilt literally from the ground up. And then you've got economics, world markets that have to be suspended for a long, long time because you don't know the ramifications there. But the biggest one would be religion, which is, remember, the five religious houses of the world, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity. You're giving them leverage against science all the same simultaneously, and you're asking them to show restraint. How does that work? Right? It's a short meeting. Basically, you're risking chaos. You're risking everything you've built so far, and for what? Wait, because the people have the right to know? No, they don't have a right to know. The power controls the information. So you figure out a way to use it to your advantage or keep it hidden for as long as possible. Create the space program, create the space illusion, encourage every sort of space programming media known to man. I mean, our best franchises out there. Think about it. Star Trek, Star Wars, Stargate, Battlestar Galactica. We've got novels and television shows and movies going on forever to explore space. It's an easy thing. So long-winded answer to a short question, which is it's not what you stand to gain, it's what you have to lose. Would you risk people rioting in the streets and changing everything that you know, or you want to just maintain the status quo? And power does not risk, they do not leave anything to chance. There you go.
okay. Um, so another thing that kind of goes along with reinforcing the idea that the Earth is a globe and the universe and so on and so forth is the landing on the moon.
Yeah.
Uh, which you state, oh, I just got a message that this will end in 10 minutes. Um,
Oh, that's
Sorry.
because because you're doing the 40-minute thing. That's okay. You can do another one if you want. That's fine.
Okay, so if we've never gone to the moon,
Right.
okay, or if you know, obviously the world says that, well, except for North Korea, I guess, says that we have gone to the moon, and they
Right.
all admit that it's the United States that went to the moon.
Right.
Why the United States? Why not any other country, especially whenever there was a time period where it was a race to outer space
Right.
between the superpowers of the world, being, the USSR and the United States.
Right.
Why did everybody come to a consensus that, oh yeah, we'll make the United States the ones that were able to do this
Right.
feat and not somebody else?
Okay, I can answer this one before our session runs out, and then again, you can send me another one if you want it. That's fine. Um, so to preface this, again, this predates everyone in the classroom. There used to be a big rivalry. The greatest rivalry in our civilization was the USSR versus the US, which was the Soviet Union versus, the United States of America. So NATO versus the Eastern Bloc and all that. And there was a thing called the space race, which was cosmonauts, which were Russian astronauts, and then our astronauts. And again, you can look this up. Type in the space race and click on images. Time magazine, cover after cover. I mean, Life magazine. Everybody, this was hyped up. There was a big thing, and it was also a combination with a military arms race because remember, the space race is just an offshoot of military technology using ballistic missiles. And everything was great, right? Russia came out to this early lead and we were, left in the dust. And all of a sudden, for no reasoning whatsoever, we went 6 times perfectly back and forth to the moon. And I'm not even gonna count Apollo 13. That was just drama. And then our last mission was in 1972, but after we went in 1969, Russia just quit. They just shut the whole thing down. Now, we'll answer that question in a second. They were the only ones in on it. And the reason why all the other countries, and let me answer this question first. When I go to countries outside the United States and I'll ask an audience, I'll say, so why, people of Sweden, why do you think the Americans went to the moon, right? The Americans, remember, only the Americans have gone. Nobody else has gone, even though lots of countries have tech now. Why haven't they gone? And I asked them, I go, why do you think the Americans went? Right? Why do you believe that? And they say, well, because it was on television. And the US government, your media would never lie about something like that. And I just smile and I go, really? You gotta understand. I go, we're the good guys. We're the white hats. We're the United States. We're the greatest show on earth. But that's just it. We're the greatest show. If there is a story we're willing to spin out there that'll make us look better as a country, we're going to do it. Power perceived is power achieved. Now, as far as the Soviet Union is concerned, they were going along their stuff, but they didn't have nearly the resources and the technical talent that we did. And so the decision was made, which was, okay, think about this. In Hollywood, you can't have even two studios right next to each other work on the same project. There's going to be inconsistencies between the two. You cannot have a studio in Moscow or wherever they have, and, working on a fake moon program and another one at an Air Force base somewhere in Nevada working on a fake moon program and have it look the same. There's going to be inconsistencies. You can only have one group do it. And so the Soviets quietly backed out and let us take over from there because again, we're the greatest show. All the other countries don't know anything. I mean, yes, there are five groups with moon technology. That'd be China, Europe as a whole, Japan, Russia, and us, right? Five, I think, with launch capabilities. The rest at the highest levels they know, but if you're thinking that everybody that ever worked at NASA is in on the secret, no, they're not. The only people that have to know anything, well, one are the astronauts. They need to know something, but even the telemetry guys need to know more than the astronauts. If you don't know what telemetry is, that's when a rocket goes out of visual range, and the telemetry guys will tell you exactly how far it is, where it is in 3D space. So, yeah, the Americans didn't do anything. Sorry, we went from supposedly 1969 to 1972. Can't explain how we got through the Van Allen radiation belts without shielding. Can't explain why none of the astronauts died of cancer from radiation poisoning. Can't explain so many things on the moon, which again, I could spend days on the moon. That's how a lot of this started for us, which was we've got dedicated channels that all they do is go after the Apollo program. It's aged badly, extremely badly. And there's a reason why they haven't gone since 1972. Again, remember, it's not just, sorry, one more thing. How many minutes does it say we have left?
Actually, I don't see a timer.
Well, it'll cut out. It's all right.
Yeah.
I'll go until it cuts out, which is it's not that the Americans just quit in 1972. It's that no one else has even attempted to go since 1972. Think about how long ago that is, right? All the 70s, most of the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, I mean 50 years. No one's even attempted, and now every president, this predates a lot of you guys, going all the way back to Carter. This is before Reagan. Goes all the way back to Carter. It said the same thing. We're going to go back to the moon. We're confirmed. We're committed to going back to the moon. The Bushes and Clinton and Obama and Biden and Trump, they've all said the same thing. And every administration gets to a certain point, and then they switch administrations, they change gears, and nobody goes anywhere. They've been kicking down the can down the road for 50 something years, and it kills me. No offense to the science enthusiasts out there, it kills me when I talk to science people and I say, "When are we going?" Right? And they just look up in the sky and they say, "Soon, we're going soon." It's like, really? Because of the Artemis program, the Artemis 2, they picked the astronauts. I've seen the art. Look up if you get a chance, look this up. If you're watching the recording, look up something called the Dear Moon Project. Elon Musk's baby from 7 years ago, going on 8 years ago now. He was going to send content creators on a space shuttle that didn't exist around the moon. They weren't even going to land. Never even started it. 7 years, the contract ran out. They just quietly went over. It was financed by the Japanese. Never happened. No one's going anywhere. Anyway,
Like, I did find the time. I have 3 minutes, and then
okay,
we will
okay,
start another one. But just to give you kind of a time here,
okay.
um, let's see. And one of the students wanted to know about seasons, how they work. Basically, I think that they were getting at is that the southern hemisphere has opposite seasons of the northern hemisphere,
Right,
and with your model, from what we understand,
right.
the sun rotates around the earth, and so it would have to rotate slightly differently or something in order, unless you have like a dual screen thing going on.
Well, yeah. Well,
I
first
don't
off,
mean to laugh. I'm
no,
making
no, no,
fun of
no, no,
part of
no,
my
no,
comment
not
of dual screen.
no, not at
But
all. In fact, the one of the biggest arguments is people say, "What's the weakest part about flat Earth?" I go, "Well, the 24-hour Antarctic sun because you can't do it with one light source. Doing one light source around the North Pole, that's a piece of cake. Doing one light source around, the outer markers, the southern hemisphere, no, very, very tricky. However, if you're going to build a planetarium like this, the heating and cooling system isn't going to be from a tiny, tiny. You got to remember, the only reason we draw the sun 1,000 miles wide in the drawings is because otherwise you wouldn't be able to see it. So because we say the sun is less than 100 miles wide, look at the eclipse shadow if you get a chance. If the sun is just this tiny, tiny light compared to everything else, then the heating and cooling has to come from other places like the jet stream, the underwater conveyor system in the oceans, geothermal, whatever. Again, if you've got a lizard or a tarantula in a terrarium, you're going to do whatever it takes to make the place heating and cooling. However, when it comes to something this big, creating the seasons wouldn't be that difficult to do. But you can't do it with just the sun. That's not going to work. I mean, yes, the sun travels, over us like a needle on a record player and goes in and out. But that's not going to be the main cause of the seasons. You're going to do a lot of other things that we don't know.
okay, let me look at my time. I have less than a minute, so why
Okay.
don't we cut it there, and
Okay.
I'll send you another invite here in just like 2 seconds.
Okay. And there we
And
go.
let me. All right. All right, so the next question we asked about the seasons and how they work.
Yeah.
Um, how long have you been a flat earther?
I've been a flat earther for 10 years, over 10 years. I started in the first week of February 2015. That's when I made the Flat Earth Clues, which I put out on YouTube and never stopped. It just got bigger and bigger until the pandemic, and then things turned upside down for a while. And then we came back, and now slowly but surely getting back to normal.
Okay, if someone wanted to investigate more on their own without going into a deep dive, kind of like a Flat Earth 101 for elementary, for idiots, those types of books,
Yeah.
what would you recommend?
Oh, I made up a special playlist for it. You can go to my channel, just type in Flat Earth Mark on YouTube or any search engine, and there's a playlist called Flat Earth for New People, which is the various videos that I have chosen over the years that are introductory. That most of them aren't even mine, by different content creators, and we'll lay it out for you from A to Z.
Okay. Um, all right. Another student wanted to know, why are all depictions of flat Earth a circle?
Yeah.
Why are some not oval, some square? Like, why? It still obviously has a circular tendency,
Right.
whether it's a sphere or.
That, and by the way, gold star, whoever asked that one, because I've been doing this now for a decade and I haven't gotten a new question in probably a year and a half. I have never been asked that question. That's brilliant. Thank you for that. Why is the circle not an oval or a square? That's a great question. Well, one, we choose the circle one because we didn't come up with the azimuthal equidistant map. I was the one that pointed out it's like, look, the UN flag tends to be this shape. However, interesting subject there because the UN flag, as you know, is a rectangle. And since I'm a big virtual reality guy, if this is real, then it's probably a simulation anyway. If you know anything about simulations and computers, computers do everything in squares and right angles because computers can't draw circles. The pixels are square for a reason, and you zoom into any sphere or circle, any graphic into a computer, and eventually you're going to run into little squares. So when we build simulations, if we were going to build something like this in the video game world, because that's where I came from, which there's something called the skybox system, which you can look it up, which is the sky in any simulation is just a big box that sits on top of another box, and we can simulate anything inside of it, any planet, any star, anything like that. So, for to her answer her question, it's both, in my opinion. It's a circle, but I also think it's a circle inside a box. No different than, why a Hollywood soundstage is always this giant square warehouse. But everything you build on it, you can build any. Uh-oh. Oh, it's okay. We're fine.
Whatever.
It was just translating something on this side. The
Okay.
it's just a box. So anyway, I think it's both, but we choose the circle because the UN flag is a circle.
Okay. We have about 10 more minutes before our bell is going to ring.
Okay.
Let's see. Um, okay. So the Earth is static. It is not moving in any way, shape, or form,
Nope.
correct?
Nope.
Okay. So the only thing that is moving is the projection on the.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. What if the ceiling was static and the Earth was rotating underneath it? Is there a reason why that model would not work?
Yeah, because then you're going to run into centrifugal force, and it would be worse. So you would run into some weird gravity things on the outer edge. So if this thing was a merry-go-round, that's what you're talking about. So yeah, is the sky moving or is the ground moving? One of the old arguments in the flat Earth community. We always say the sky is moving. I think it's 15 degrees per hour, which is if this thing was a merry-go-round, as you know, if you stand in the center of the merry-go-round, you're just going in a circle. But if you're staying on the outside of the merry-go-round, you're going to get thrown off. The oceans would start pooling on the outside, which, by the way, sorry, let me follow that up that with another thing, the globe. If the globe is spinning at 1,000 miles at the center, by the way, there should be a huge issue with water, meaning kind of like Saturn's rings and stuff like that. There should be a huge surge of water. There shouldn't be any land at the equator at all because the water will pool in the center, and there shouldn't be any land, the North Pole and South Pole should be bald by comparison, but there should be a big fat tire of water around the middle, and we never see that. Again, water moves very well to kinetic energy and gravitational energy. So why don't we see that? Again, drive with an open cup of water in your car and make a left turn or a right turn. Watch what happens. Imagine that, but on a much bigger scale. We don't see it on the globe.
Is there anything that would convince you that the Earth is a globe?
Yes, two things. One is cheap, one is not so cheap. And I put a challenge out there years ago. One would be, first off, show me in space, in any sort of space program, put a camera, because we got all sorts of great cameras now. Put a camera on top of a capsule, point it down at the globe, shoot that baby into orbit, and then have it leave Earth. The ground should start forming into a globe, and you should see a nice, pretty globe as the thing goes away from it. We have never seen that in the history of space travel. Statistically speaking, that's impossible. In fact, the Tesla Roadster in space, I know this predates a bunch of the kids out there, but that should have shown it. And the other's like, oh yeah, we're going to send the car to Mars now, and then you just turn off the cameras. It's like, okay, I see what you did there. That'd be the one that should convince everybody. But the second one that I threw at people, which was something you could do on the ground, is like, well, we got to be able to do something on the ground, and which was my spacesuit, which is everything in a vacuum chamber that's pressurized will eventually go rigid and then explode. I don't care what it is, football, basketball, can of soda, whatever it is, eventually the pressure differential will blow up whatever it is in the vacuum chamber, right? There's only one thing that doesn't do it to. Spacesuit. It's weird because I have asked many a scientist, I go, tell me what magical technology is in the spacesuit that stops it from turning into a parade float and then they tip over and they explode and die. And they say, and to where I'd say, in fact, loan me a spacesuit, put me in any university vacuum chamber and pull the switch. I am absolutely willing to do that. You're not going to do it because it doesn't work. It will not work. There should be so many videos of astronauts in spacesuits being, tested on the ground in vacuum chambers. We do not see it. So, and I can, you can tell it very easily how to test a vacuum chamber to make sure, because water boils at room temperature in a vacuum. A bell does not ring because there's no sound, there's no air to conduct the sound. And what was the third thing? Bell, water. I can't remember what the third one was, but it doesn't really matter. So the spacesuit technology it doesn't exist. So, and even if you could convince me now in 2025, right, that we've got that tech, it's like even though they can't even explain it theoretically, how'd you do it in 1969? How'd you create the perfect spacesuit? We've never had acts. No one's ever died in a spacesuit on their own. Shuttle disasters, that's a whole other thing. No one's ever died in a spacesuit. Tell me how that happens. No one will answer it. In fact, one last thing along those points. No one has even fictionally come up, even science fiction. Look, I'm a pretty clever writer. No science fiction author has even come up with a theory of how the spacesuit works. It just does. It's like a plot point in a movie. It's like, well, hey, can we explain it? No, it doesn't matter. We're 10 minutes past in the movie. We're moving on. It's like, no, the spacesuit just works. It's like they just put it on television and people bought it, even though they can't explain. Go ahead.
All right. Um, so last time you established that you do believe in climate change, or
Yes.
you believe that climate change is possible.
Yep.
So is the ice wall in danger of disappearing? And if it does, what does that do?
Nah, I mean, I think the system, again, first off, is climate change real? Well, in something like this, it's absolutely real because remember, greenhouse gases make more sense if it's an actual greenhouse, if there's an actual barrier. And if you've got anywhere between, I don't know, 700 million and a billion internal combustion engines, which are basically just mini furnaces running in the world at any given time in the form of cars. Forget about house furnaces. Cars generate huge amounts of heat, collectively. That should affect something. Now, will the ice wall melt? I think that there'd be some redundant systems in there that would stop it from melting. I haven't seen any melting yet. However, would it create weird weather in patterns in places where you shouldn't see it? Yeah, I would think so. It'd be no different than if you brought in a propane lantern into your SUV, what, and then you turn the air conditioning on, right? Then you bring another lantern and another lantern. Yes, the car is going to be able to compensate for it, but it's going to create some weird hot and cold spots in that thing they're almost unpredictable. So yeah, believe in climate change. No, I don't think the ice wall is in any danger at the moment.
Okay. We're gonna do one more. Hold on, what is it doing?
I haven't seen anything bad.
Hold on. Okay. We're gonna pretend that didn't happen.
Okay.
Um, so uh are there other conspiracy theories that you are uh, a believer of, or that you think that people should be aware of or look into? Like, what is something that you think that makes you go, hmm?
Wow. That by the way, thank you for that. No one's ever asked me that either. That is really, really weird. I believe in all sorts of conspiracies, but do I think they're important? No, just that, look, I'm going to be as delicate as I can when I say this. Watch the news with a discerning eye. Watch it with some form. Try to read between the lines. Media isn't objective. Never has been. It's one of the oldest tricks in the book, which is if once the powerful realized that the media was what the public listened to, then they controlled it. They bought up everything. They've influenced everything: radio, television, newspapers, you name it. So any story that comes out, be aware, try to think to yourself, why is that story out there? There's got to be a reason. Two quick things, both said by Franklin Roosevelt, president during World War II. First one was he said, um, give the people only as much truth as they can handle. Meaning you don't tell them absolutely everything. And the other thing is nothing in politics happens by accident, which is world events. They're not just happenstance. They're scheduled. They're choreographed. So that's about it. That's the only other conspiracy I can throw that. And even that's smaller than flat Earth, but at least it's something that they can look at.
Anybody have anything else, real quick? We've got about 3 or 4 more minutes. Ms. Reeves, do you have anything?
Any offshoot questions? Well, okay. If while they're thinking, let me do this. Everything that I've told you today, again, take with a grain of salt. Which is, look, I'm not here to convince you or persuade you. I'm just here to put some ideas into your head and you decide to run with it. Do your own research. I know that's a t-shirt, it's a cliche, but it's true. Think about it on your own. Go home and look at stuff. And I think it was Thomas Jefferson that said, things are rarely what they first appear to be. Even though you guys are young, you've run into this already. Happens all the time. The world is not exactly what you think it is. We make assumptions, and then as you get older, you look at things and you find some truths here and there, and hopefully it changes your perspective. That's all I'm looking for.
You said that you have your annual meeting next week in
Yep.
Arizona.
Yep.
Is it an RSVP type
No,
fair?
no, people can go. It's absolutely
Okay. I
open.
just didn't know if you had any estimates of numbers that were going to attend.
I have no idea because when it comes to conferences, I don't run the conferences, and I've always been critical of people that it's like pick a location. I'm like the Vegas conference. We had what, 600 people. That was kind of fun. But in this one, we're out, a couple hours outside of Phoenix. I mean, it's going to be nice weather, but it's a small town out in the middle of nowhere. Now, how many people are, I don't know. I really don't know how many people are going to show up. It really comes down to like real estate, location, 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 which is you gotta find a venue that's convenient for people that they can go do other things, and so we'll
All right.
see.
All right. Well, that was our bell.
All right,
We thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
thank you,
We
thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
All right, have a good one.
All right. Thank you.